Hello. So, before I announce the Remy Mask winner, let's have a look at some of the entries and their recurring themes. Just to jog everyone's memory, the question posed was simple. What is your most memorable dream? The only catch was that you had to fit your entry within one YouTube comment. Some of you gave cleverly concise descriptions, whereas others sacrificed grammar in order to squeeze in as much as possible. And in the process of it all, we really did cover the dream content spectrum. Your dreams ranged from mundane to abstract, from demonic to angelic, from precognitive to symbolic, from touching to perverse. We really did have a bit of everything. Although, all in all, the entries did slightly lean more towards the dark side. Many of them would fall into the nightmare category, in other words. And of course, this trend was fairly predictable. Due to the fact our brains are wired for survival, a seemingly life-threatening experience, or at the very least a highly unnerving one, is naturally going to leave a lasting impression on us. Perhaps more so than a cute, light-hearted, fluffy little dream. Those cute, light-hearted, fluffy little dreams are all well and good, but for most people they just don't affect them as deeply. They end up being knocked down the recall priority list, as it were. So yes, nightmares were one recurring theme. But what specific recurring themes arose within that construct? Well, zombies for starters. In fact, at one point I think I recall 3 back-to-back entries all pertaining to zombies in one form or another. Of course, each individual will have their own subjective reasons for dreaming about this. But generally speaking, I think this has a lot to do with day residue. Zombies are extremely popular in mainstream culture at the moment, in the form of comics and TV shows like The Walking Dead, games like Resident Evil, and movies like World War Z. So at every turn, zombies are penetrating our psyches and leaving imprints on all levels. So it's no surprise then that they spring up so frequently for so many within the dream world. This is what us Anironauts call day residue. What we experience in our waking life inevitably reappears within our dream life. Another popular theme amongst the entries was the apocalypse, and this sometimes merged with the zombie theme in the form of zombie apocalypses. Instinctual, built-in human fear probably played a large role here, but I'd imagine that day residue was once again the driving factor. After all, humans have obsessed over the idea of the world ending for centuries now. Every generation has had people that were convinced that they were on the brink of it. And of course, it never comes. But the concept never dies out. It seems to be built into us in a sense, but why? Well, drawing upon the fact that most humans fear death, and coupling that with our general recognition and acceptance of the human condition, it really is no surprise. When we conceptualise the apocalypse, we're living out some perverse, twisted fantasy to just get it out the way, as it were, to just put us out of our misery. Also, keep in mind that over the last few years, mainstream culture has bombarded us with all things apocalypse. All forms of entertainment have relentlessly crammed it down our throats, especially in the lead up to 2012. So combine day residue with our built-in innate instincts, and the frequency of these dreams becomes unsurprising. Flying was another frequent theme throughout the entries. I put this one largely down to wish fulfillment. I think it's fair to say that flying symbolises ultimate freedom for our species, and that for most, freedom is the primary factor driving our happiness and our contentment. Physical freedom, monetary freedom, societal freedom, etc, etc. In waking life, we strive very literally towards that goal of freedom, and in the dream world we strive just the same, but in symbolic form instead. Couple this with the fact that flying is just generally a thrill and a major stimulant for sense immersion, it's understandable that we manifest flying so frequently within the dream world. Another common theme was interactions with nature and the elements. This is going back to our innate built-in instincts again, our core connection to the universe manifesting itself in a very literal way. Extreme weather, beautiful scenery, otherworldly animals, supernovas, etc, etc. Even if we're looking at it from a purely scientific standpoint, we all intrinsically share that connection with the universe. We're inseparable from it, so to dream of that connection and be in awe of it is not only expected but probably needed on some level. Another fundamental, instinctual, recurring theme was sexual encounters. Wish fulfillment is at play again here, and rich symbolism is likely to be present too. In fact, sexual dreams, for whatever reason, seem to be one of the main ways our subconscious chooses to impart important messages to us. This seems to be a pretty universal thing. Of course, nothing is ever completely universal, but 99% of the people that I've talked to about sexual dreams can vouch for the fact that they're always, or nearly always, rich with symbolism. And if you're good at interpreting your dreams, you can decipher that symbolism, break it down, analyse it, and get some really important stuff through. A linked recurring theme is extreme violence and homicide. Might sound weird, but this goes hand in hand with the sexual encounters due to the intrinsic link between birth and death. So don't be too worried if your mind concocts these violent scenarios. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. Although, of course, you could be. A lot of the time, instead, it's merely the metaphorical manifestation of the destruction-creation cycle. Trying to convince dream characters that you're dreaming whilst lucid was also high on the list of recurring themes. This is, in my humble opinion, straight up, good old-fashioned, subconscious ego tripping. No two ways about it. As I stated in my previous video series on flying in dreams, I find the practice of trying to convince your dream characters of anything fairly pointless, although the fascination with it is understandable, especially for someone new to lucid dreaming. But regardless of said fascination, it is essentially mental masturbation. Not that that's inherently a bad thing, but I'm just suggesting you don't get too caught up in that. It rarely yields many insights or any lasting benefits. Before I move on to my last few points, let me just once again underline something that I want to make abundantly clear. I'm not disregarding the personal subjective elements that are undoubtedly at play for each individual dream experience. I'm merely taking a generalised approach to the interpretation here, and that's the only approach I can take when talking about something as broad as recurring themes. So anyway, something else of note is that most of the competition entries were dreams set in the non-lucid realm. This perfectly backs up a couple of points I regularly like to make. Firstly, regardless of skill, most dreams will still occur in a non-lucid state. And secondly, our non-lucid dreams are potentially just as powerful and life-changing as our lucid ones. Another recurring theme throughout the entries was recurring dreams. And of course, within the context of tell me your most memorable dream, it makes perfect sense that recurring ones were so prevalent. Naturally, the more something happens, the more you're likely to remember it. It was also interesting to note that a large chunk of the entries were dreams recalled from childhood. I expected to see this because our connection to the dream world is a lot stronger when we're younger. In fact, in a sense, most of us unlearn that innate connection as we grow older. When we're younger, we're naturally inquisitive, we're naturally probing, we're naturally lucid on the whole. This is in waking life and dream life alike. This rounded feature set of our youth manifests in brilliantly exquisite and memorable dreams that end up staying with us for the entirety of our lives. And the competition entries are a perfect testament to that. Okay, so one last thing I noticed popping up in the entries a lot was me. This is another great example of day residue at work. Whilst in the waking state, many of you have made a very strong link between me and dreaming. So because of that, your own personalised dream construct of me steps forward from time to time within the dream world. Going on not only these entries but just generally messages I've received through the years, I'll often appear as a dream guide. So, as I jokingly said a few videos back, please reality check every time you see my face. It might sound silly, but it could seriously aid you in your lucid travels. Okay, That's it for now. Tune back in the next video where I will be analysing the 3 runner-up entries. See ya!